Good morning, everyone. It is good to come and join with you today. We are continuing our series in Exodus 34, continuing to look at the most quoted verses from the Bible by the Bible. And we have already started this series. We have been looking at the fact that God has a name. His name is Yahweh. He is a relational God, and we are invited into a personal relationship with him. And then we looked at the first characteristic, compassionate and gracious. Being the first in this list means it is the one that is to be remembered above all else. He is compassionate and gracious. Yahweh doesn't give us what we deserve. He gives us grace and forgiveness because he looks on us with compassion. Today we are moving on to the next 3 words of the passage, slow to anger. And we'll be seeing how Yahweh being slow to anger is actually an outworking of his compassion and his grace. So if you turn to Exodus 34, and we'll read it together. Exodus 34, verses 5 to 8. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and stood there with him, and proclaimed his name, the Lord. And he passed in front of Moses, proclaiming, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children and their children for the sin of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation. Moses bowed to the ground at once and worshipped. So Yahweh is personal and relational. He is compassionate and gracious. And now we see he is slow to anger. Let's start off with the fact that God gets angry. For many of us, we need to hear that actually Yahweh is slow to anger. In our modern Western world, we are all good with a loving, forgiving God, so much so that when we talk about him, we neglect to talk about his wrath and his anger. But this is a core part of his characteristic. This is what he says. He is slow to anger, but he does get angry. And actually, I think it is a good thing that he gets angry, because we live in a messed up world, a world of darkness and of hopelessness. Switch on the news any day of the week, and you see death, war, abuse, victims, suffering. Without the news, personally, we all go through times of difficulties and struggling. Some of those difficulties and struggling are based on our own decisions and the choices that we make. And sometimes it's based on the decisions and choices of others. God gets angry at the state of our lives and at the state of the world. Because what we have now on this earth is not what God wills. What we have is the will of the world. As I go into schools and as I lead events, I quite often get asked the question, how could God let X happen? If God is all loving, why is there suffering? And sometimes these questions are dealt on a very intellectual, theological level. They just want to ask the question for the sake of asking the question. But other times you're dealing with people who are in pain, who are hurting. And that leads to longer conversations. And next time we'll look at what it means of God being faithful in those times as he walks with us. But for now, as we look at this, the answer is simple. The pain and the hurt of this world is not God's will for us. Can he use it? Yes. Can he work in it? Absolutely. But not everything in this world is the will of God. Humans have free will. We have choices that we can make. We often abuse them for good and for bad. There is also spiritual opposition to Yahweh's will this side of eternity. That is why, as followers of God, we are to be known to be bearing much fruit. It's why we're instructed, Charlie's already been talking about it, of clothing ourselves in the armor of God. We've sung about it this morning. Charlie's talked about the importance of it so that we can stand against the schemes of the devil. Our will and our choices should be shaped by God. But it's not that way throughout the world. And so, as God looks at our lives and looks at the world, he does get angry. Psalm 7, David calls for the Lord's anger. Arise, Lord, in your anger. Rise up against the rage of my enemies. Awake, my God, decree justice. Psalm 5, for you are not a God who is pleased with wickedness. With you, evil people are not welcome. The arrogant cannot stand in your presence. You hate all who do wrong. You destroy those who tell lies. The bloodthirsty and the deceitful you, Lord, detest. Psalm 11, the Lord examines the righteous, but the wicked, those who love violence, he hates with a passion. And then Nahum 1, the Lord is a jealous and an avenging God. The Lord takes vengeance and is filled with wrath. The Lord takes vengeance on his foes and vents his wrath against his enemies. There is time when it is right to be angry. When we look at the injustice in the world, at the war, the abuse, the victimization, the suffering, it is right to be angry at it, a righteous anger. We should see it and say, this is not what it should be. This is not right. Because God says the same. Now, there are times in the Bible where we see moments of instant judgment, God's anger raging against the people. Because of the offense they show him, he strikes them down dead there and then. Onan, Uriah, Aaron's sons, Ananias and Sapphira, like all of them experience instant judgment. There are other times too, thousands of Philistines. But as we look through the Bible, that type of instant judgment is the rarity. Much more often, we see God who is slow to that anger. He shows forgiveness, waiting, compassion, and grace because he is slow to anger. He is much more likely to pause and show that compassion, just like we saw last time when we looked at Jonah and the Ninevites, where Jonah rages against God. I didn't want to come here because I knew you would show compassion. And it is a theme repeated time and time again in the lives of the Israelites all through the Bible. Yahweh does not go around throwing godly temper tantrums and slamming doors. Many people here have children of varying different ages. You have some experienced this. Some of you have yet to experience the instant mood swing of, "Ah!" And you're stood there going, what just happened? Where did that come from? That is not what God is like. He does not sit on a cloud for the moment you to do something wrong that he can strike you dead with a heavenly lightning bolt. That is not what Yahweh is like. Actually, for followers of God, his anger has been completely removed from us because of Jesus and all that happens on the cross. Because of Yahweh's compassion and grace, he takes on that righteous anger that we so rightly deserve. He took it upon himself. The wrath of God on Jesus was placed, and in his death is dealt with. And so we don't stand in that place of anger and wrath anymore. But for those who don't follow God, they do. They live waiting for the coming ultimate wrath of God, the judgment that is ahead. But God is slow to anger. He is patient. Peter tells us in 2 Peter, He does not wish for any to perish, but for all to come to repentance. We live in a time of grace, a time to come to God. So Yahweh is slow to anger. But what about us? What does it mean for us as we live in this messed up world that is not what is God's will? In a time of darkness and hopelessness, a time where we should be angry at the injustice and the wrong that we see. Well, Micah tells us, Micah 6, he has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. That is what we're called to do in this world. To the people around us, we are called to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with Yahweh. Romans 12 expands this a little bit more. Romans 12:16. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Never be wise in your own sight. Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If it is possible, so far as it depends on you, live peacefully, with all. Beloved, never avenge yourself, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, and I will repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. It's a clear list of instructions of how we are to live our life in this world. Yes, we can be angry at the state of the world that we live in. We can be angry at the injustice. But how we are to live is to live in harmony with one another, to associate with the lowly and not think we're better than others, not to think we're wise and it's all about me, not to repay evil with evil, to do what is honorable in the sight of all, to live peacefully with all, to leave the vengeance to God. So easy when we are slighted, when something goes wrong, it's like, how dare they? How could they? We are personally offended by this, and we rage. But we're told to leave that to God, to live peacefully, to act justly. Not to return evil with evil, but to return good. We are not to go and to grab the pitchforks and the torches. We are not to stand there indignified. How dare someone do this? We have been offended. No, we're told to repay evil with good. And that is so contrary to the world in which we live in. Again, when I go into schools and we talk about sort of the moral law sometimes with them, and you know fine well the moment the kids leave the assembly hall and they go out into the playground, it's completely different. Because the world teaches them an eye for an eye. He did that, so I'm going to do this. The world teaches them to repay evil with evil. To be the top dog. Doesn't matter about others, as long as I'm okay. To put down those around you so you look best. But when we stand differently, when we stand peacefully, returning good, when we happily and in love show kindness and love and grace, it's seen. And it highlights the depravity of what is happening around us. We are to use our positions, our responsibilities, and our resources where God has placed us. And he has placed us all in different places with different resources and different skills. That is what we are to use to overcome the evil of this world with good and with true life, life to the full that comes from God. We are to share the gospel of the kingdom in words and in actions. Leave the wrath of God to handle all those sites as he sees fit, while we tell people how to live free of that resentment, that anger and wrath. We have been forgiven of so much. So easy is it for us just to sometimes say, I'm not going to forgive you. And we forget how much we've been forgiven. So easy is it for us to be offended, and we fail to recognize the scope of the wrath that's been removed from us by Jesus. So as we finish, remember that God is slow to anger. For some of you here today, and those listening online, you need to hear that God gets angry. When he looks at the injustice of the wider world into which he calls us to act justly, he is angry. He gets angry at how we live our lives when we reject him and go against the way he calls us to live. And it is only because of his compassion and his grace at the cross that we do not face that anger ourselves. For others of you here, though, you live under constant judgment of fear and of shame and of guilt. You are concerned about the wrathful, vengeful God looking down at you and smiting you. To you this morning, hear that he is slow to that anger. He loves you and is gracious to you. So this week, as you go about your business, you go to midweek groups and you discuss this, think about what does it mean for you and how you live your life that God is slow to anger. What resources do you have? What positions has God placed you into for you to be able to show God's mercy, his compassion, his grace, and his slowness to anger with those around you?